BSDCan, so I'm glad to be here, both at BSDCan and as a presenter, so it's absolutely stunning. And I came here to tell you why and how we are migrating many of our servers and our customer servers from Linux to the BSDs, and how the things are going. But to get into this, I have to start with my own personal story. So it will be something straight between technology and personal life. So the first thing I should be doing is introducing myself. I am Stefano Marinelli, and I solve problems. I'm the founder and barista of the BSD Cafe. The BSD Cafe is a community of BSD enthusiasts and people just passionate about technology, about open source operating systems, just curious, and that want to get more into the BSD systems. And the target of the community is just to create a relaxed and peaceful, inclusive, and open environment in which everyone will just feel relaxed and ready to ask any kind of question or just look at what others are saying or writing for their own personal growth and the community growth by itself. I work in my own company called Prodotto in Rete. It's, of course, an Italian word, but more about this later. All I can say now is that the company is just a container of ideas and solutions. But yeah, more about this later. I'm passionate about technology. I'm passionate about computing. I used to say that I was born with a keyboard under my arm, and it was quite straightforward to make my passion my profession. And I can say I'm lucky enough to wake up every morning with a smile, say, oh, great, I'm going to do some funny things today. I'm not sure what I'm going to discover today, but it will be great. So at 45 years old, it's quite nice. How did I get into the open source operating systems and the BSDs? Well, I started in 1996, before even turning 17. I was reading about those open source operating systems on Fido.net, you know, the BBS, Time, all those old modems. But I couldn't believe that something, a free operating system family, free operating systems, how could they work? I mean, nobody's getting money from them. I was too young to understand, to fully understand. But I found an advertising on a magazine, and they were just saying, you can buy this CD set, we will ship them to your address. It was quite cheap, to be honest, considering it was coming from abroad. And you don't need to download anything. So I said, why not? Let's try this family of operating systems, the open source operating systems. And when they arrived, I found those CDs contain many Linux distributions. So I started to install them inside my computer. It wasn't a powerful computer. Of course, I was a teenager, I was a student, so I couldn't afford to buy a computer just for those tests. So I just created a small partition beside my Windows partition. I started playing with those distributions. And it was love at first shell. I mean, I found, when I saw that cursor blinking, I didn't see a cursor blinking. I saw a blank canvas, a powerful tool that was going over all those, you know, graphic UIs with checkboxes. I just felt I could pipe comments together and realize everything I wanted to. Like, you know, the Lego bricks. You can just combine, mix and match, and create everything you want to. So that was beautiful, but my hard disk space was quite limited. So I had to consider to use Linux just for some tests and not for, you know, real world, real life use. So I kept it in a small partition and used to play with it from time to time. But everything changes 1 year later when I bought a, you know, faster, bigger computer, and I could use Linux and Windows side by side. And I found out that I could do anything I needed to with that Linux operating system. So open source, free, because I did not pay for the operating system, but just for the CDs. And it was, you know, I felt the freedom of using those tools. So I immediately understood the power of the open source world, of the open source operating systems. That led to give Windows just a small partition for gaming. At those times, Linux wasn't great for gaming. And in 1998, I started my university studies in Bologna, Italy, computer sciences, of course. And I found out that the computer science courses in Bologna were quite open source oriented. So many of my colleagues, students, weren't aware of the open source operating systems, Linux operating systems. So it was beautiful because I was one of them who could immediately get into the spirit of the university labs, of the university team. And I eventually became one of the administrators of the university labs. And they were totally based on Linux solutions. So my studies continued to go on. And in the year 2000, so 25 years ago, I started attending some courses by Professor Ozar Babaoglu. And Professor Babaoglu never explicitly pushed towards the BSDs, but you know, with students, he's one of those who created the BSD operating system. What's this BSD operating system? I know Linux. Linux is open source operating system. What's BSD? So I started studying about those BSD operating systems. But you know, I couldn't access a broadband connection at those times. So I just had to study online documentation, and my computer wasn't great to read the documentation. So I had to postpone the real, you know, hands-on on BSD operating system until 2002, as I got a new computer. I got a broadband connection, so I could just start downloading those beautiful images of the BSD operating systems and start trying them. At that time, I also started to manage for the university a project called FreeBSD. And the FreeBSD was a project where people could contribute sending ready-to-use virtual machine images of free and open source operating systems. And people could just download them or run inside a virtual machine, so they didn't have to get all the problems of installing, repartitioning. It was quite difficult those times to make operating system coexist in those drives. And that project was quite successful, and many people started sending their own images. I remember, for example, Professor Tannenbaum sent Minix images for the FreeBSD. And in the very last days of the project, another person created a way to launch those operating systems inside the browser. It was launching a virtual machines inside the server and just providing a user interface, a shell inside the browser. It was a very good project for its times. And so I got passionate about all the open source operating systems. But there was a problem. I wanted to study on paper. You know, those screens in 2002 were great for a long time study. So I decided to try to ask my parents to buy me a laser printer, but I couldn't say just for BSD stuff. They couldn't understand it. So I just said I needed that printer for a lot of university papers or university duties. And they agreed. So we bought that laser printer, and the first thing that I printed with that printer has been the FreeBSD handbook. And I started studying the FreeBSD handbook because it was so complete, so full of information, not only about FreeBSD, but about all the Unix systems, that I learned from it much more than all the university studies. So for me, it was something incredible. So no, I didn't use that printer for university duties, but that printer led me here today, so thanks, Mom and Dad. At that point, I installed FreeBSD as a primary operating system inside my Sony Vaio. I had a Sony Vaio at the time. And that laptop was totally transformed by FreeBSD. It was running much smoother, better, faster, more reliable, more stable than with Linux. Sounds incredible today, but it was that way. And I wanted, you know, I was young, I was passionate, I wanted more from that. So I didn't use KDE from the packages. I used to compile it from ports because, hey, after 18 hours of compiling time, I could shorten the boot time of half a second. So, you know, I needed to compile it. So I remember entire nights with that laptop 1 meter away from my head because I was at university, I just had a room, with those fans spinning during all the night because, hey, I'm compiling KDE. My homies thought I was crazy. Maybe I was, but yes. Okay, let's go on. That led me to really consider BSD operating systems as great operating systems. So when in 2003 I started to prepare my final thesis for university, I had no doubts. I decided to concentrate on open source virtualization solutions, especially NetBSD Xen. I found NetBSD Xen as a perfect combination at those times. It still is today, but at those times, I thought it was the best open source solution to virtualize environments. And it's been a good, a good choice because I could use it, but we'll see it later, and it really worked out. So let's go on. Years are passing. I graduated. Great. I started searching for a job, and of course, I tried to search for a job where I could use my passion for open source operating systems. So I was glad when I found a company that was starting to deal with Linux. I thought, well, I'll bring the BSDs sooner or later here, but I start with Linux. I'll get into it then. But the problem is that I started making servers for them, so mail servers, web servers. They were creating Java CRMs, so Tomcat, all the stuff that we used to manage in the early 2000 years. And I had to face a problem I couldn't expect, because I was so passionate. I'm trying to do my best. I want to show the world that those open source operating systems can do anything and better than the closed source Windows solutions. So one day, one of the managers called me and started to complain because my servers were too stable. My servers weren't breaking. My servers didn't need constant intervention. As he said, that the clients were used to all the old Windows servers, that the blue screen of death, oh, we have lost a drive, calling them from time to time just because they needed to get back in track. My Linux servers were stable, too stable, and that was hurting the company's billing. I was shocked. I was sad. I didn't want to work that way. I want to solve problems, not to create problems to clients. And unfortunately, when I see a client and see the client has a problem, I want to solve their problem, and I want to be sure that I do my best to solve their problem, not to do my best to fill my pocket. So that wasn't perfect for that company's billing. So at the same time, in the evening, I was teaching Linux courses to system administrators that were experienced with other operating systems like Windows or proprietary Unix systems. And one of those tried to suggest to me, you're young, why don't you try to make your own company, make your own business? In Europe, it's quite different from the American style. We have many small companies, one-man band. We like that. And so I reasoned about it. I never thought I could do something by myself. My idea is I graduate, I'll go into a company, I'll bring my expertise there. And I started to understand which kind of company would I like to create? Which kind of guideline would I like to follow in the moment I will create something for myself? And the base of this idea was make your own kind of music. Don't look at the others. Just understand what you want to do. Understand what you want to provide. Concentrate on them. So it's been 20 years ago this year. So it's been a long time, quite a long time. And I started to define my philosophy. And my philosophy has always remained the same, with several degrees of adjustment. But the point is, I solve problems. I don't sell boxes. You will never see me proposing, this fancy box with all the stickers, bells, whistles, and everything. I will always concentrate on trying to select the best solution I can provide to my clients. And I will do it myself. I will not ask others to provide services for me for that. Maybe I can ask others to work on that, but nobody will ever tell me what I have to do with my services. And this means I will never be tied to any particular vendor. Yes, I can suggest solutions, even closed ones if needed, but this means you'll never see me. I'm certificate seller of this, I'm certificate technician of this. No, sorry, I'm free. I will not do that. So this means that I will always promote open source solutions every time I can, and mostly BSD-based ones. As a fallback, Linux One are good too. So that was the initial philosophy. I decided, I started, went to clients proud, happy, young, energetic, but I had to face the real world. And the real world is, what? Open source systems? But those are just toys for university. The real world is powered by, commercial, expensive solutions. Licenses are something we should consider when we prepare our budget. And it was hard, because clients didn't want to listen, because I was a strange voice in a world dominated by people saying, you have to buy my product. It's expensive, but it's better than that, more effective than that other. So I started to try everything I could to push people to try my systems. I proposed to delay the payment. I'm going to work for free. In 1 year from today, you will see how much you have saved in license costs. You will see how much you will have gained in stability, and then you will pay me. Maybe it was crazy, but it worked. Some clients said, OK, if you're confident enough to provide free services, who am I to say no? And we started to do this way. And this way was using the BSD systems where possible, using NetBSD Xen as virtualization platforms, and that worked. One of the most successful blog posts on my IT Notes blog, and that is still being read over the time, is that old NetBSD server that has been running unattended for 10 years. It was from those times, and it works. It works. So NetBSD Xen as virtualization platform, OpenBSD when I needed network, firewall appliances, something that had to run to be secure, to be upgradable without any problem, and FreeBSD for the other services, so backup servers, mainly at the beginning to convince clients that wanted to do Linux. I said, OK, let's make a Linux prod server, but let's make a FreeBSD backup server or FreeBSD secondary server. Just have a look at it. Then you'll decide what you want to keep over the time. And they usually choose FreeBSD. So things were working. Things worked out. The clients were surprised both by the stability, reliability, and the easiness of the upgrades. They were used to, Windows. Oh, we had to restore everything 3 days down. Oh, we will have to restore database. It will be a mess. Buy new hardware. Let's start from scratch. My upgrades usually were, OK, tomorrow from 8 in the evening to 9, I will stop the servers just to upgrade them. And at 8:15, OK, we have finished. Everything is fine. You can go back to your work. Clients were quite amazed at those times. And because of that, there was something that I could really not, outside of any business plan I could do. Clients started to complain, everything is working, everything is stable, why should we pay you? Because they were used to those old problems. I called the IT man because we have a problem. We have a stuck server, so it's freezing, so we need you. They're not used to pay people because things are working. So that has been quite hard too. So I tried to choose clients that could understand the value of saying, no, you don't have to pay me because things are not working. You have to pay me because I will make sure that things will be working for you. Your business is not making systems work. That's my business. Your business is use those systems for your business. Because my clients can be both IT companies or non-IT companies, but they just want their servers to work. So I had to point out many times, I solve problems. The problems I have to solve is not to have problems with you, not to have problems for you. You should continue working always and in a reliable way. It worked. I could have 65% of servers based on BSDs, old BSDs, and 35% of servers based on Linux. Sometimes I needed Linux. Clients wanted Linux. That was OK. I refused many times to put my hands on Windows servers because when I did it, I always did a mess. I'm not a Windows man, so I don't want to put my hands in a totally different operating system. I could just, no, sorry. So over the times, things were working. And Linux started to be everywhere. People started to understand the concept of open source of Linux. So people started to request Linux. Even when we had BSD workloads that were stable, reliable, and so. But why can't I have Linux as my friend, my colleague, that other company, the Fortune 500 companies? So sometimes I had to replace those servers with Linux-based ones, especially the virtualization ones, because clients, of course, wanted to have more control on their virtual machines. So they loved to have a user interface that could launch inside their browser and just reboot or enlarge their virtual machines. So I started to use, at first, OpenNebula with Gluster file system. And Gluster file system has been a terrible experience for me. Almost killed me. And then Moose file system, much better. And then eventually I switched to Proxmox. It was something like 2013, so many years ago, much before the VMware, Broadcom, and so on. At first, mainly with Ceph, the network file system, then mostly with ZFS, because I didn't find for the workloads I was managing advantages of using those network file systems. Yeah, HA, but I found that having more moving parts didn't give me more reliability. But actually, it was less for my workloads. So it was OK. That's a win. The open source is everywhere. Linux was accepted. I could push the BSD systems when possible. We won the war. The open source war, not a toy anymore. People were seriously considering my proposals when I was going to say, let's use Linux, let's use the, oh yeah, why not? You have a great experience in Linux. Yes, I was using it when people were just saying it was a toy, so I have. So the proportions changed and Linux became predominant. I continued to use the BSDs for my own workloads, for services that I was providing to clients, for example, mail hosting, web hosting, if they just need a interface to upload their public HTML, sorry. They don't care if I'm using Linux or one of the BSDs. So when I can choose, of course, I choose a BSD. But it was OK, and it has been OK for some years. But years pass, trends change, the IT world changed, Hive changed. So I started to understand the situation I was living. So in 23 years now that I've been using the BSD, I never lost a single bit on any BSD workload, server, client, any BSD system. Of course, I deleted some files. I had to roll back from a backup because I did something or a client did something. That happens. But I never had a corruption, a critical corruption that led me to restore something because of the operating system, because of the file system. While I had it with Linux, with X4, more than 10 times, I'd say. With XFS, it's been the worst because it was just for some files, but the client was quite demanding, so it wasn't hard to say, OK, let's recover from the backup. Why? It shouldn't happen, I know. And Butterfile system. Butterfile system, I lost 50 terabytes. It was a backup server, actually. 50 terabytes of data. The disks were just a mirror, so just mirrors. I just rebooted the servers. No problems on the disks, no problems on the operating system. nothing, no upgrades, just a reboot, file system is unmountable. I could not remount it. I didn't waste too much time. I called the client. It was a secondary backup server. The primary one was already on FreeBSD and ZFS. So I said, let's make this FreeBSD and ZFS too. And the client said, of course. And more, FreeBSD is a great, even if not that known way to mount the root file system in read-only using UFS. You just install FreeBSD in UFS. You just change the RW in the FS tab to RO. And FreeBSD, this is a part of the NanoBSD times. And this will lead to a perfectly working read-only FreeBSD file system. So for strangest system, maybe they have not reliable power, or people just unplugging the cord. This happens too. I just create the root file system in read-only, so nothing will break in case of an unclean shutdown. And maybe the workloads or the data will be on a ZFS, but at that time, I can always go back to the server. I can always connect to the server without having physical access to the machine. So I can get in and debug problems. Never had any problem with ZFS, but you know, never say never. So those were things that I was considering some years ago. And more, in 2018, I started to introduce Docker to devs. I wanted to make devs more powerful, you know, free to implement, to deploy things. But this led to problems more than advantages. Devs started to put in production outdated software. Oh yeah, I had to create a container with PHP 5.4 or 5.5. What? It's the only way to make it work. Sorry. No, not on my servers. But it's container, it's inside a container. Don't worry, it won't hurt, it will. So, or I need to run this service as root. But it's an old service, it's outdated and as root. Yes, I need. So I understood that this led to problems. And more, the development of Linux, and both as a kernel and distributions, is evolving towards data centers, big cloud providers, not the small company, not the company that wants to host their own email or their website or their databases, their own data. So that's not the spirit, I remember, of the early days of the operating system. And that's not the way I'm focusing, because my philosophy is totally different from that. So, you see, people just focused on replacing the old with the new. Is the new solving new problems? No, it's creating worse problems, but it's new, it's shiny, it's different, okay. But if we are replacing something that is working and reliable with something that isn't as reliable as before, what's the advantage of that? Why are we doing that? Okay, we're IT people, we love experimenting, you know, I'm a nerd, sometimes my wife, it's time to get to, no, I'm just trying a new release of that software. We are IT people, but our clients are not IT people. They want their website to stay up and running. They don't care if it's running a brand new software or a stable and reliable HTTPD from OpenBSD. That's the point. So, there's no one size fits all. And the current trend, especially in the Linux world, is this. Let's just go to the cloud. Let's just go to the Kubernetes. Oh, I have to put a hello world page, HTTP. Yeah, we create a Kubernetes cluster for that. What? And that's why I'm creating blog posts on my IT notes saying, you can do your personal blog with tens of thousands requests per minute on a €1 per month VPS. Because we can. Why should we give up this freedom, these possibilities? We shouldn't. So, solving problems for me means creating solutions that will reduce new problems, not making them worse. And clients, as I said before, don't care if their website is powered by Linux, FreeBSD, OpenBSD, NetBSD, Illumos, or whatever. They just want it to be reachable, secure, stable, reliable, backed up in a consistent way. So there isn't a single solution to all problems, like several companies or consultants want us to believe. But there are tons of solutions for a single problem. So my job is to give those clients the solutions I think it's more appropriate for their specific problem. So I stopped and thought, okay, computing should solve problems. We're not using computers to create new problems, unless we are doing that for business. Let's create problems so we get paid to solve them. But that's a different topic. I solve problems, and here solving problems is choosing the best technical solutions I can. So the BSDs are stable, reliable, upgradable, secure, and clients want that kind of approach. They just don't know it. They just don't know what they want as a technical solution, but they know what they want as a result. So it's time to get back to the BSDs, to reverse that proportion again. Go back to the most BSDs, and Linux has a fallback. So I started to propose clients the BSDs for different tasks. So OpenBSD, when they don't need anything else but the base system, OpenBSD is a great base system. It's consistent. All the configurations are, if you know how to configure PF, you can configure RelayD, you can configure HTTPD. Configuring a network interface in OpenBSD is beautiful. And people sometimes, is it all? Just writing some lines in a text? Yeah. But no systemd? No. Nothing fancy, you don't have to make several clicks, no. Just one line, and it will keep working for years. So OpenBSD, the first choice, when I have to make a simple system. Simple doesn't mean that isn't powerful. Simple means easy to manage and upgrade. NetBSD is used when I need to create setups for specific hardware or for workloads that we cannot touch often, like places connected in an unreliable way, or just for internal services, monitorings. And that's good, because NetBSD doesn't need to be patched that often. So it's a perfect choice, or if using, of course, one of the architectures. I am powering my own IT nodes blog. I have some varnish caches nodes on some cheap VPSs, but the main two public HTML directories that are powering my blogs are on OpenBSD Amsterdam VM and a Raspberry Pi W first edition over my bench, powered by the USB coming out from my switch. It works. I can upgrade it. I've never seen any slowdown. Yes, of course, I have the varnish caches outside, but never had any problem with that. And I have my blog 1 meter away from my hand. So this is quite strange today. FreeBSD. No need to say ZFS, Beehive, Jails, and so on. I'm keeping an eye on Hammer 2 on Dragonfly BSD, but I haven't any of them in production at the moment, so I can't say much about that. So let's go. Let's start migrating back to the BSDs. How? At first, I decided to migrate the workloads, so virtualization servers or virtual machines that needed some upgrades or was showing some problems. So at first, I decided to make a fair comparison between the traditional Linux setups and the BSD-based one. So I decided to create some twin machines. And for twin machines, I mean many of my servers are leased inside European data centers, European providers. So I could lease a twin machine, a machine having the very same hardware configuration, and start installing FreeBSD and moving the workloads, both in form of virtual machines, so from Proxmox to Beehive, or just replacing the services, reinstalling or reconfiguring inside some jails. And what I noticed is a significant increase in I/O performance. In Linux, in Proxmox, I've always seen in any hardware setup, even the most powerful ones, that when the physical node is struggling with I/O, the virtual machines will hang for half a second or something like that. And when this becomes problematic, they will complain about, hey, I couldn't write on the disk for more than 1 second. And this is a problem. I never saw something like that on FreeBSD. In the I/O weight, I mean, I'm not talking about the number you see when you go to top, but I mean real world use, is managed much better on FreeBSD. And ZFS is making this even better because the caching that is performed by ZFS will make everything snappy, even if on spinning disks, not only on solid-state drives. And this is a huge advantage. Of course, there is ZFS on Linux too, but I don't want to rely on something that I have to compile or hope that will be compiled at the next update cycle. I want something integrated inside my operating system. And FreeBSD ZFS is a perfect combination for that. So after seeing this, I did something crazy, but not that crazy actually. I decided to migrate 2 physical servers of a client. Each of them contained more or less 10 virtual machines over a weekend, same hardware, from Linux, Proxmox, to FreeBSD, Beehive, just moving the virtual machines from one host to another. Before anyone will complain about that, I've been criticized in Dublin for this. Someone said, you're crazy, you had to inform the client. Of course, I'm not totally crazy. I did it because I had an agreement with the client where I just provided the services. They know I can move the virtual machines from one server to another or something like that. So it was OK. But that was a test because I wanted to avoid any kind of bias. You know, hey, client, I'm going to upgrade your server. The day after, oh, yeah, it's faster. Or the day, it looks slower. If they don't know anything, they usually don't notice anything. So I performed this test. Over the weekend, I started to migrate the first host. It was easier than expected. So I proceeded with the second host. So all the virtual machines were migrated. On the Monday morning, I was there looking at the phone. Silence. Nobody calls. And when a client doesn't call after such a migration, it's a huge success. But on Tuesday morning, my phone rang. I was a bit, shocked. Oh, well, what's happening? The client was worried because they noticed a massive performance increase, and they thought I had upgraded their hardware. And they were worried, how much will it cost to us? This is the best thing that could happen, actually. I explained to the client what I had done, and the client just said, go on, let's migrate all our 20 physical hosts to FreeBSD. So I proceeded, but then I optimized things. So I decided that some virtual machines could just become FreeBSD jails. And that way, I could save resources, because having jails instead of virtual machines meant no double buffering, saving RAM, because I didn't have to assign a specific amount of RAM to the specific workload. So the jails were happy, or better, the services inside the jails, because they could use all the RAM of the physical host. So databases were happy, ZFS was happy, client was happy, and moving from the VirtIO virtualization driver in Beehive to NVMe made a difference in performance. And I also wrote about it on my blog. So this led to a massive reduction of the number of needed hosts from 20 to 11. Same workloads, same hardware, same better performance, almost half the physical nodes needed to do this. The client was happy, but I was more than happy because my ideas, my philosophy was working, was proving I was right. We had to get back to the BSDs. And then I started to propose devs to move from the Docker approach to the jails approach. And this was good because younger devs didn't even know they can use something different from a Docker Compose app to deploy a workload. And that's a problem, because they're now used to think that they cannot host their own services. They need a big cloud provider. They need to pay for the use. Just many of them, not all of course, but don't understand the power of having the control of their own data. And this led many of them to explore this new old way of working. And they were quite excited about it. So, in some cases, they requested, how can I access that specific database? Put your cloud provider here. I have an API to get the data. Here you have the dump. Just copy it inside your private hard drive. You have all the data. For them, it was crazy. But it worked. And they started to request more and more FreeBSD jails. Because the problem often is not technical. The problem is ideological. People just don't know about BSDs. People just don't know they can do the things in a different way than the ones they found when those beautiful jackets, oh yeah, I can sell you this beautiful solution, thousands of dollars per month just to have a Hello World page there. And our task as BSD people is make people aware of this. People should know that there are different solutions. People should never try to fall into monoculture. Always have a backup plan. And clients are often influenced by the hype. Kubernetes, everybody's using Kubernetes. Why aren't we using that? You don't need that. You don't need a truck just to bring a bag. And that's what I'm trying to make people understand. But, you know, the trends are different. AI, Kubernetes, blockchain, Linux, complete as you prefer, but, you know. And simple solutions are usually the easiest to maintain in the long run. Maybe you need some more time. It's not a Docker Compose app and you're there. You need to create the services, the jails, everything. But once you have the services up, they will run. They will be upgradable. And in case of problems, you can just spot the problem. It's not inside a stack you can control. Sometimes I read those, you know, Docker files, and really look at my hair. They're all fallen because you just see they're gluing pieces together, outdated software, just patching everything, and it's working. But don't try to do it at home. It won't work. So I can trust something like that, because I want people to always own their own data. We need to own our data and avoid any lock-in. I don't want a client to say, I have to use your services because I'm locked in. No. If we have not a good relationships, here are your data. Go. Thank you. Because I think this is a way to deal with people. And we are people dealing with each other. So, the BSDs are conservative. And conservative is good. It doesn't mean they're not moving, but they're moving in a wise way. After my presentation in Dublin at EuroBSD conference, Liam Proven wrote a beautiful article on the register, and he perfectly understood the point. He said, they're moving to the BSDs because the BSDs are boring. Yeah, I want boring operating systems on my servers. Because I want to be bored. I want to upgrade them when I'm doing something else, or just, yeah, okay, it's working, yes, that's fine. I don't want to, oh, it's not booting, what's wrong? And every additional layer can bring more problems, because more code doesn't mean less problems. There are more probabilities of problems, bugs, security issues, and so on. And OpenBSD, for example, the OpenBSD of TCUs, everything has changed, but nothing has changed, and that's a good approach. We have to evolve. We do not need to change everything just because, hey, that's old, it's wrong. No, that's old, well, let's make it more, you know, current with the times, but not replace it just because it's old. So this time, I solved problems, And I solve problems by not overcomplicating stuff. Clients call me, I need this new, web server, my e-commerce, WooCommerce, Magento, or anything. Okay, let's make 3 jails: web server, database server, Elasticsearch. Stop. That will be working for years. We just upgrade everything when needed, and the components will be separated, not glued together, or who knows where in the cloud. The BSD systems are stable. No surprises after reboots. I upgrade a server, I reboot it, it will start pinging back in a couple of minutes. You never are surprised, like, for example, I rebooted a Proxmox server and it wasn't reachable anymore. I had to connect to the virtual console because I could not reach it anymore. What's wrong with that? And I found that it renamed that to that after a reboot. Why? I want IX0 to be IX0 after 100 of reboots. Why do you change my... People replied when I posted it on the Fediverse, and people replied, there's a good reason for that. Okay, I'm sure of it. But I don't want that. I'm sorry. I want IX0.
There have been instances in BSD where on a multi-port box, a minor version upgrade flipped the ordering.
Yeah.
We're not immune to it.
Not totally. But I can assure you that on Linux it's much, much, much worse and more common. So, yeah. And as I said before, ZFS, I want ZFS to be integrated. I don't want to recompile ZFS every time I upgrade the kernel. And then, because I tried that, I've been hit by that, I'll not do it anymore. So, and I don't want to tell a client that specific architecture of that specific device you're using because it's certified for running at 150 degrees won't be supported anymore because it's an old architecture. I'll just install NetBSD on that, and I'm safe. And the client is happy. Sometimes they even forget they have those devices. They're so used to see them working that they forget about them. And that's the best thing that can happen when you're deploying solutions. So, current situation. Many devs embrace the challenge. They are now happy to use BSD-based solutions, and they bring other devs to the BSD solutions. So the BSD adoption rate among my clients and the friends of my clients is increasing month by month. And for me, it's a joy. And when I see an email, last one yesterday morning, I received an email morning in Italy. Here it was, well, okay. I received an email, I need 3 jails when you'll be back from Canada. When I see I need 3 jails, it's music. And this way, they learn to manage the resources. Because just doing Docker Compose up, they lose any control on how much memory the database is using, how much space that specific server or service is using. They use the cloud, just pay more. Oh, the service is low, we need more power. We need to increase the resources, just pay more. But if you're just doing a select of 3 records, you can't use 1 gigabyte of RAM. There's something wrong there. But you can't spot it easily when you're in the cloud or you're not controlling the whole system. And this is what still helps to give clients a 30 euros per month server that is an e-commerce that will serve the whole Europe without any problem. And that's the point. I'm managing some servers for some clients that are selling all around the Europe, and big numbers. They're doing big numbers from a 30 euros per month physical server. We have 2, actually, so we can ZFS send and receive every 5 minutes as a fallback. But 60 euros per month to make 10th of euros per day, they're happy. They should pay me more, actually. Okay. The clients are happy. Nobody asked, let's go back to Linux. No, 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 let's go on with the BSDs. And I explained, some of them actually became advocate for trying to avoid the monoculture. So that's great. And they value the stability and security of the BSD systems. The problem is more with the managers. The managers have to sell those services. And, you know, Linux sells well, NetBSD a bit less. It's hard to explain those sellers how to sell good solutions.
You're selling white label cloud services.
Yeah.
You don't mention the OS.
Exactly. You usually don't. So that's the point. But many of those managers want to use the buzzwords. So why should I sell FreeBSD? There's no Linux, no Docker, or at least not that used. No cloud, no AI, no distro wars. It's so so boring. But we should sell boring stuff if this is what they need. And there's another problem, compliance. I sometimes receive emails, oh, your OpenSSH server is not compliant. Oh, well, it is, it's OpenBSD. Latest release, don't worry. Yes, but it doesn't contain that string. Yes, but Debian is something else. I can't see it in my checklist, so I cannot accept it. You know, and that's a problem, because those people doing those documents are usually unaware of the BSDs. Actually, they're usually unaware of any kind of technical solution, but you know, that's the point. So the current situation, I'm a bit out of time, but you'll be patient too. I'm verbose by design, so default. At the moment, mid-2025, 83% of the hypervisors I'm managing are powered by FreeBSD. And I find it a great result, considering that I started 5 years ago, more or less, and the FreeBSD hypervisors were much, much, much lower in number and in percentage. So things are being great. And I'm doing this week by week. 72% of the workloads, so VMs or physical servers, are powered by one of the BSD systems. OpenBSD, FreeBSD, NetBSD, it's a general number. And clients are requesting many setups based on OpenBSD. Because when an SSH vulnerability comes out, and they call me worried, we have to patch as soon as, but don't worry, OpenBSD there. It's been patched in 2001. They just are puzzled. Why are we use OpenBSD for anything? So I want more OpenBSD here. OK, we are here to help you. Others love graphic user interfaces. So OpenSense is a great choice for their firewalls, for their routers, for anything that they want to control in a direct way. And the FreeBSD jails are great for devs that want to get out, the passionate ones, not the ones just having, you know, a job because they have to eat, but the ones that are passionate about their job. So which are the next steps? Because we never stop. Sorry, you will stop me when I'll be dead. So I want to go on with the BSD-made service. I've announced it more than 1 year ago. I'm still working on it. I have some more bureaucratic problems than technical ones to launch it. I have to understand some problems because it will be a worldwide service. And entirely based on the BSDs, OpenBSD for OpenSMTPD, and FreeBSD jails for the other services. So Dovecot, replication of Dovecot between two hosts, it's already up. BSD Mail is already been working for me and my emails for more than 1 year. But that's for me. It's different to launch it in a wide way. But it will eventually come because we are depending more and more from monolithic systems, companies, services. Internet has been great because of its decentralization, and we're losing it. We're just concentrating all the services on big companies and players, which could be okay for some, but why should we lose the possibility of decentralization of the network because of this? Yesterday, there's been a great problem. I've read that many cloud providers have been down for some hours. I don't know. I didn't notice it. I'm not using those services. No client has complained. We were just having a lunch, dinner with friends. No problem. And clients should appreciate what we do, what we provide, not lock-ins or ties. So that's what usually brings clients to us. We're providing solutions that they're not aware of, but they know that they are working, and they are the BSDs. And they feel free. They can go away whenever they want. So I want to reach the 90% of the adoption rate of the BSDs, and I hope to reach it by 2027, so just 2 years. I'm not saying 2026, but I hope so. And I want to continue to advocate for the BSDs using the BSD Cafe, more about this in the future, but also my IT Notes blog, where I document ways to do things in a different way, not Docker Compose app, but how to install Uptime Kuma on FreeBSD even if it's not officially supported, which is not a hack. It's just a way to show people that they can do the things in a different way. And they can choose. Maybe they prefer the Docker way, perfect, but they should know that there are other ways to manage things. So, I'm finishing. The transition to the BSD is going smoothly, much better than expected. I expected much more, having lived the early days 20 years ago of the open source adoption, I thought the clients would have been, oh no, let's just stick to Linux. No, clients are quite open now. They're accepting the BSDs in a passionate way, and when they saw them, they wanted more BSDs. Clients are satisfied, devs are satisfied, we are satisfied, near to zero alerts waking up us during the night for critical servers, for the BSD ones, at least. We'll continue to provide solutions and not boxes. We'll continue to go on with that philosophy that has been set 20 years ago. That will be the same for at least the next 20 years or 30. So, no closed box, no shiny solutions, but to sum up, I am Stefano Marinelli, I solve problems, and I love solving problems using the BSD systems. So, thank you. And I hope you will all come to BSD Cafe. We're waiting for you.
I noticed something recent, which is the opposite, something going from BSD to Linux.
Yeah?
Which I find really annoying. Is anybody else annoyed with IX systems changing TrueNAS to be only Linux?
This is a hot topic here, I guess. Yeah.
I embrace the TrueNAS because, it gave me jails, it gave me Beehive to run some VMs, and ZFS native, and all that other stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm really impressed to see that they've decided that FreeBSD isn't for them anymore.
That's why I usually try to stick to FreeBSD by itself, OpenBSD, and not products built over, because they could eventually change their, their path sooner or later. Yeah. Sorry?
The title of your talk is how you're migrating many of your servers from Linux to the BSDs, but not all of your servers.
Yeah.
So I was curious, are there any actual technical reasons you come across to actually stay with a Linux-based system?
Sometimes there are. The problem is that not all the services can be migrated to the BSDs because they are not compatible with the BSDs. They're not running there. I'm usually getting over it using the Linux simulator, which is giving release by release better results. So many of them can be switched now that maybe could not be switched 2 years ago, for example. And in other situations, I have to install a specific software the client needs, like, for example, Zimbra mail system, and they run on Linux. So, of course, those Linux virtual machines will run inside Beehive, so FreeBSD as a host. But, this requires time as I'm managing hundreds of servers, so I cannot switch all of them from one day to another or from 1 year to another. But usually the problem is more, as I said, ideological than technical. So that's the only reason why. Otherwise, I'd just move. I have some problems with my laptop or desktop on the BSDs, but that's another topic. Welcome.